Gehenna, from the Hebrew Gehinnom, is the Jewish analogue of hell, or purgatory in Christianity. The terms are derived from a place outside ancient Jerusalem known in the Hebrew Bible as the Valley of the son of Hinnom. The Valley of Hinnom is the modern name for the valleys surrounding Jerusalem's old city, including Mount Zion, from the west and south. It meets and merges with the Kidron Valley, the other principal valley around the old city, near the southeastern corner of the city. In the Hebrew Bible, Gehenna was initially where some of the kings of Judah sacrificed the children by fire. Thereafter it was deemed to be cursed. In Jewish rabbinic literature, and Christian and Islamic scripture, Gehenna is a destination of the wicked. This is different from the more neutral Sheol, Hades, the abode of the dead. Although the King James Version of the Bible usually translates both with the Anglo-Saxon word hell. In the King James Version of the Bible, the term appears 13 times in 11 different verses as Valley of Hinnom, Valley of the son of Hinnom, or Valley of the children of Hinnom. Etymology. English Gehenna represents the Greek Gehenna found in the New Testament, a phonetic transcription of Aramaic Gehenna, equivalent to the Hebrew Gehinnom, literally Valley of Hinnom. This was known in the Old Testament as Gai ben Hinnom, literally the Valley of the son of Hinnom, and in the Talmud as Gehinnom or Gehinnom. Citation. In the New American Standard Bible, Joshua chapter 15 verse 8 notes, "Then the border went up the valley of Ben Hinnom to the slope of the Jebusite on the south, and a border went up to the top of the mountain, which is before the valley of Hinnom to the west, which is at the end of the valley of Rephaim toward the north." Joshua is describing the boundaries of the tribe of Judah. Keel and Delitzsch note in the commentary on the Old Testament, it then went up into the more elevated valley of Ben Hinnom, on the south side of the Jebusite town, i.e., Jerusalem, and still farther up to the top of the mountain which rises on the west of the valley of Ben Hinnom, and at the farthest extremity of the plain of Rephaim towards the north. The valley of Ben Hinnom, or Ben Hinnom, on the south side of Mount Zion, a place which was notorious from the time of Ahaz as the seat of the worship of Moloch, is supposed there, but of whom nothing further is known. Quote, "This reference in the book of Joshua is the first mention in the Old Testament of this valley of the sons of Hinnom. This valley, as Keel and Delitzsch note, bulged on the south side of the Jebusite town, i.e., Jerusalem." Quote, "This valley is mentioned 5 times in the book of Jeremiah as the place in which the people would burn the sons and daughters in the fire as part of the worship of Moloch, as noted by Keel and Delitzsch. In the Quran, Jahannam is a place of torment for sinners and non-believers, or the Islamic equivalent of hell. Geography. The exact location of the Valley of Hinnom is disputed. Older commentaries give the location as below the southern wall of ancient Jerusalem, stretching from the foot of Mount Zion eastward past the Tyripion to the Kidron Valley. However, the Tyripion Valley is usually no longer associated with the Valley of Hinnom because during the period of Ahaz and Manasseh, the Tyripion lay within the city walls and child sacrifice would have been practiced outside the walls of the city. Smith, Delman, Bailey and Watson identify the Wadi al-Ribabi, which fits the data of Joshua, that Hinnom Valley ran east to west and lay outside the city walls. According to Joshua, the valley began at En-Rogel. If the modern Burayyub is En-Rogel, then Wadi al-Ribabi, which begins there, is Hinnom. Archaeology. Child sacrifice at other Tophets contemporary with the Bible accounts of the reigns of Ahaz and Manasseh have been established, such as the bones of children sacrificed at the Tophet to the goddess Ankh in Phoenician Carthage, and also child sacrifice in ancient Syria-Palestine. Scholars such as Mosca have concluded that the sacrifice recorded in the Hebrew Bible, such as Jeremiah's comment that the worshippers of Baal had filled this place with the blood of innocents, is literal, while Mark Smith has stated that in the 7th century child sacrifice was a Judean practice performed in the name of Yahweh. J.D. and Mosca believe that the Molech cult took place in the valley of Hinnom at the Topheth. No archaeological evidence such as mass children's graves has been found. However, it has been suggested that such a find may be compromised by the heavy population history of the Jerusalem area compared to the Topheth, found in Tunisia. The site would also have been disrupted by the actions of Josiah, and he defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech. A minority of scholars have attempted to argue that the Bible does not portray actual child sacrifice, but only dedication to the god by fire. However, they are judged to have been convincingly disproved. The concept of Gehinnom, Hebrew Bible, Old Testament. The oldest historical reference to the valley is found in Joshua chapter 15 verse 8, 18:16, which describe tribal boundaries. The next chronological reference to the valley is at the time of King Ahaz of Judah, who sacrificed his sons there according to 2 Chron. 28-3. Since his legitimate son by the daughter of the high priest Hezekiah succeeded him as king, this, if literal, is assumed to mean children by unrecorded pagan wives or concubines. The same is recorded of Ahaz's grandson Manasseh in 33-6. There remains debate about whether the phrase "cause his children to pass through the fire" meant a religious ceremony or literally child sacrifice. The book of Isaiah does not mention Gehenna by name, but the burning place 30-33 in which the Assyrian army is to be destroyed may be read. Topheth, and the final verse of Isaiah which concerns those that have rebelled against God. Isaiah chapter 66 verse 24. In the reign of Josiah a call came from Jeremiah to destroy the shrines in Topheth and to end the practice. Jeremiah chapter 7 verses 31-32, 32-35. It is recorded that King Josiah destroyed the shrine of Molech on Topheth, to prevent anyone sacrificing children there in 2 Kings chapter 23 verse 10. Despite Josiah's ending of the practice, Jeremiah also included a prophecy that Jerusalem itself would be made like Gehenna and Topheth. A final purely geographical reference is found in Neh. 1130 to the exiles returning from Babylon camping from Beersheba to Hinnom. Targums. The ancient Aramaic paraphrased translations of the Hebrew Bible known as Targums supply the term Gehinnom frequently to verses touching upon resurrection, judgment, and the fate of the wicked. This may also include addition of the phrase second death, as in the final chapter of the book of Isaiah, where the Hebrew version does not mention either Gehinnom the second death, whereas the Targums add both. In this the Targums are parallel to the Gospel of Mark edition of Gehenna, to the quotation of the Isaiah verses describing the corpses where the worm does not die. Extra-biblical documents. Aside from the Targums, there is a lack of direct references to Gehenna in the Apocrypha, Dead Sea Scrolls, Pseudepigrapha and Philo. However, there seems to be an allusion to Gehenna in the Deuterocanonical Book of Judith 16:17, especially when considering the addition of Gehinnom to fire and worms in Isaiah chapter 66 verse 24 in the Targums. One or ought not assume a unanimous acceptance of this kind of figurative concept of the Valley of Hinnom, since it exceeds or even contradicts the semantic used in the books of Isaiah and Jeremiah. Josephus does not deal with this aspect of the history of the Hinnom Valley in his descriptions of Jerusalem for a Roman audience, nor does Josephus make any mention of the tradition commonly reported in older Christian commentaries that in Roman times fires were kept burning, and the valley became the rubbish dump of the city, where the dead bodies of criminals and the carcasses of animals were thrown. The southwestern gate of Jerusalem, overlooking the valley, came to be known as the Gate of the Valley. Rabbinical Judaism. The picture of Gehenna as the place of punishment or destruction of the wicked occurs frequently in the Mishnah in Kidron 4.14, Avot 1.5, 5.19, 20, south.It, Bereshith 6.15, and Babylonian Talmud b. Rosh Hashanah 16b, 7b. Bereshith 28b. Gehenna is considered a purgatory-like place where the wicked go to suffer until they have atoned from the sins. It is stated that the maximum amount of time a sinner can spend in Gehenna is 1 year. There are also 4 people who do not get a share in Olim Haba. Those people are Doeg the Edomite, Ahitophel, Balaam, and Gehazi. Due to Jewish religious tradition regarding the bloodiness of its history, Gehenna became a metonym for hell, or any similar place of punishment in the afterlife. The traditional explanation that a burning rubbish heap in the Valley of Hinnom south of Jerusalem gave rise to the idea of a fiery Gehenna of judgment is attributed to Rabbi David Kimmy's commentary on Psalm chapter 27 verse 13. He maintained that in this loathsome valley fires were kept burning perpetually to consume the filth and cadavers thrown into it. However, Hermann Strack and Paul Billebeck state that there is neither archaeological nor literary evidence in support of this claim, in either the earlier intertestamental or the later rabbinic sources. Also, Lloyd R. Bailey's Gehenna, The Topography of Hell, from 1986 holds a similar view. There is evidence, however, that the southwest shoulder of this valley was a burial location with numerous burial chambers that were reused by generations of families from as early as the 7th until the 5th century BC. The use of this area for tombs continued into the 1st centuries BC in AD. By 70 AD, the area was not only a burial site but also a place for cremation of the dead, with the arrival of the 10th Roman Legion, who were the only group known to practice cremation in this region. In time it became deemed to be accursed and an image of the place of destruction in Jewish folklore. However, Jewish folklore suggests the valley had a gate, which led down to a molten lake of fire. Eventually the Hebrew term Gehinnom became a figurative name for the place of spiritual purification for the wicked dead in Judaism. According to most Jewish sources, the period of purification or punishment is limited to only 12 months, and every Sabbath day is excluded from punishment. After this the soul will ascend to Olim Haba, be destroyed, or continue to exist in a state of consciousness of remorse. New Testament. In the Synoptic Gospels, Jesus uses the word Gehenna 11 times to describe the opposite to life in the kingdom. It is a place where both soul and body could be destroyed in unquenchable fire. Matthew chapter 5 verse 22. Whoever shall say, "You fool," shall be guilty enough to go into Gehenna. Matthew chapter 5 verse 29. It is better for you that one of the parts of your body perish, than for your whole body to be thrown into Gehenna. Matthew chapter 5 verse 30. Better for you that one of the parts of your body perish, than for your whole body to go into Gehenna. Matthew chapter 10 verse 28. Rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in Gehenna. Matthew chapter 18 verse 9, it is better for you to enter life with one eye than with two eyes to be thrown into the Gehenna. Matthew chapter 23 verse 15, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you make one proselyte twice as much a child of Gehenna as yourselves. Matthew chapter 23 verse 33, to the Pharisees, you serpents, you brood of vipers, how shall you to escape the sentence of Gehenna? Mark chapter 9 verse 43, it is better for you to enter life crippled than having your two hands to go into Gehenna, into the unquenchable fire. Mark chapter 9 verse 45, it is better for you to enter life lame than having your 2 feet to be cast into Gehenna. Mark chapter 9 verse 47, it is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye than having 2 eyes to be cast into Gehenna. Luke chapter 12 verse 5, Fear the one who, after he has killed, has authority to cast into Gehenna. Yes, I tell you, fear him. James chapter 3 verse 6, and the tongue is a fire, and sets on fire the course of our life, and is set on fire by Gehenna. Translations in Christian Bibles. The New Testament also refers to Hades as a place distinct from Gehenna. Unlike Gehenna, Hades typically conveys neither fire nor punishment but forgetfulness. John's vision in the book of Revelation describes Hades being cast into the lake of fire. The King James Version is the only English translation in modern use to translate Sheol, Hades, Tartarus, and Gehenna as hell. The New International Version, New Living Translation, New American Standard Bible all reserve the term hell for the translation of Gehenna, transliterating Hades as a term directly from the equivalent Greek term. Treatment of Gehenna in Christianity is significantly affected by whether the distinction in Hebrew and Greek between Gehenna and Hades was maintained. Translations with a distinction. The 4th century Ulphilas Bible is the first Bible to use hell's Proto-Germanic form Halja, and maintains a distinction between Hades and Gehenna. However, unlike later translations, Halja is reserved for Hades, and Gehenna is transliterated to Gehenna, which surprisingly is the opposite to modern translations that translate Gehenna into hell and leave Hades untranslated. The late 4th century Latin Vulgate transliterates the Greek gamma epsilon nu alpha Gehenna with Gehenna, while using infernus to translate delta eta sigma. The 19th century Young's literal translation and Rotherham's Emphasize Bible both try to be as literal a translation as possible and do not use the word hell at all, keeping the words Hades and Gehenna untranslated. The 19th century Arabic Van Dyck distinguishes Gehenna from Sheol. The 20th century New International Version, New Living Translation and New American Standard Bible reserve the term hell only for when Gehenna is used. All translate Sheol and Hades in a different fashion. The exception to this is the New International Version's translation in Luke chapter 16 verse 23, which is its singular rendering of Hades as hell. In texts in Greek, and consistently in the Eastern Orthodox Church, the distinctions present in the originals were often maintained. The Russian Synodal Bible also maintain the distinction. In modern Russian, the concept of hell is directly derived from Hades, separate and independent of Gehenna. Fire imagery is attributed primarily to Gehenna, which is most commonly mentioned as Gehenna the Fiery, and appears to be synonymous to the lake of fire. The New World Translation, used by Jehovah's Witnesses, maintains a distinction between Gehenna and Hades by transliterating Gehenna, and by rendering Hades as the grave. The term hell is not used for Gehenna or Hades. The word hell is not used in the New American Bible, except in a footnote in the Book of Job translating an alternative passage from the Vulgate, in which the word corresponds to Jerome's in Pharaoh's, itself a translation of Sheol. Gehenna is untranslated, Hades either untranslated or rendered netherworld, and Sheol rendered netherworld. Translations without a distinction. The late 10th century Wessex Gospels and the 14th century Wycliffe Bible render both the Latin Inferno and Gehenna as hell. The 16th century Tyndale and later translators had access to the Greek, but Tyndale translated both Gehenna and Hades as same English word hell. The 17th century King James Version of the Bible is the only English translation in modern use to translate Sheol, Hades, and Gehenna as hell. Many modern Christians understand Gehenna to be a place of eternal punishment called hell. Annihilationists understand Gehenna to be a place where sinners are eventually utterly destroyed, not tormented with literal pain forever. Christian universalists who believe that God will eventually reconcile all souls to himself, interpret the New Testament references to Gehenna in the context of the Old Testament and conclude that it always refers to the imminent divine judgment of Israel and not to everlasting torment for the unsaved. The Valley of Hinnom is also the traditional location of the potter's field bought by priests after Judas' suicide with the blood money with which Judas was paid for betraying Jesus. Quran. The name given to hell in Islam, Jahannam, directly derives from Gehenna. The Quran contains 77 references to Gehenna, but no references to Hades.